Hey everyone, so back again with the 93 Honda Shadow 600, and like I've said in my previous videos, I cut the rear fender off, the rear frame off, and right at the beginning of the pandemic, and then I got busy with doing other stuff, so my bike basically sat for a whole year. Started it maybe a couple of times just to make sure it still ran, but it basically sat for a year. And now that I got it back together and I'm using it again, it's not really running that well. So I took it out for a ride the other day, and it was basically stalling without the choke on from starting from a standstill. It will start from a standstill if I have the choke on. It won't really run that well until I really give it some gas and get it up to speed. Then it seems to run okay. But it definitely is sputters and it struggles under load at lower RPMs for sure. So I did a whole bunch of seafoam, and at first it was like kind of running not that well, only just a little bit, but it would, like, I could run and it was fine. I could run it without the choke. But then the more, the longer the seafoam was doing its thing, the worse it got. So my guess, and I've asked a few people about this, is that the seafoam did its job and loosened up a bunch of stuff, but the stuff was a little too big, and now I'm guessing that the carburetor is getting a little clogged up. So at this point, I think it's time to, and this is probably the first time it's ever been off, so it's probably not a bad thing to take it off, give it a really good cleaning, and see where we go from there. So this video is all about taking the carburetor off. Side note, never done this before. I've watched a few videos online. Seems like it's not too bad. I'm going to take it over to my dad's house at some point, the carburetor itself. He's got one of those ultrasonic cleaners. I'm going to throw it through there and see how that works. So anyway, here's the bike. It's ready to be taken apart, I guess. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the gas tank off. So in order to do that, right on the other side here, I got the Petcock, and this is your fuel shutoff. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shut the fuel off. So that is in the off position. In order to take that off, there's a screw deep inside here, Phillips head screw. So you can take that screw off, and this long Petcock handle comes off, and this goes underneath the frame. So you want to take this out, or if you don't, you can't get the fuel tank off. So I'm going to take the Petcock handle off, and I'm going to loosen up and take off the bolt that holds on the gas tank and the seat. Okay, I got the bolt off the seat. I got the Petcock handle off. That's where it screws into right there. Yeah, you can see the hose going into the Petcock. And you can see right at the end of my finger there's a little clamp that's holding the hose on, the fuel line on. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the fuel line off. So at that point I can remove the tank. I'm also going to throw a rag underneath there to soak up any gas that might come out. It shouldn't come out of the tank. There might be a little bit on the end of the hose there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, just a quick technique. You can see that the clamp hanging down there, right at the end of my finger, that clamp right there. It used to be closer to the Petcock, and I slid it back. How I did that was I had to stick, I used both my hands, one finger in from this side, the other finger in from the other side, and basically just, pushed it together that way. It's really hard to get my whole hand underneath there from one side. So one finger in from each side, you push it together and you just slowly shimmy it back. So that's how I got that clamp off. Okay, and now I'm going to get that hose off the Petcock. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attack this from the top. Basically just lift your gas tank up and off. It sits on these little nubs right here. There's one on each side. So that's what holds the front down. Lift the gas tank off. It's going to be really hard to see, but right there's the Petcock right here at the end of my finger. Just to the right is the fuel line coming off. I'm just going to get in there with my flat-bladed screwdriver, and I'm just going to pry that hose off carefully so I don't, rip anything. Almost there. I'm going to take it off the rest of the way with my hand. And there we go. And a little bit of gas splashed out, just a tiny bit, but not a big deal. So again, make sure that you turn off that gas before you take the tank off, because if you look underneath, there's the petcock right there hanging down. If that's on, gas is just going to pour out everywhere. So make sure you turn it off. So at this point, I'm actually going to start the bike up, and it's basically going to run the gas from, that's left. You can see right on top here is underneath the seat is the fuel filter. All right, so there's still gas in there, I can see it. So there's gas in this line and the fuel filter that's leading down to the carburetor. So I'm gonna go ahead and run the bike a little bit and see if we can get it to burn off the rest of the gas in that fuel line. All right, so now that I've sufficiently smoked myself out in my garage here, I'm going to call it a night and let the motorcycle cool down. I just ran the gas out. You know, you can definitely notice that there's no more, you'll be able to tell there's no more gas in your fuel filter. You can watch it empty out. Basically just let it idle for as long as it needed to until it ran out of gas. So when I start taking some more stuff off, hopefully there won't be as much gas leaking out all over the place. But yeah, I'm gonna let it cool down and then probably start working on this tomorrow. All right, so for the next step, we're gonna take the air cleaner off. This is pretty simple. It's just 10 millimeter, two 10 millimeter bolts right here on the top of this bracket. You do not need to take this off. This is just if you want to check your air filter or change your air filter. That's a 5 millimeter Allen wrench, but you don't need to take that off if you're going to take this whole assembly off. So there's three things holding it on. Like I said, the two 10 millimeter bolts, and there's a hose clamp up top here that has a Phillips head. You can loosen that up. Take the ratchet. These bolts, for me, they loosened right up, and then immediately I was able to just use my hand to take it off. So and it should come right off once you have all three of these areas loosened up. All right, so on the back side of this, there is going to be a little breather hose, so it does want to come right off. And if I can get the camera over here, right on the back side, on the center, right underneath that bracket, you can see that hose coming out. I basically just pulled it right out. It wasn't on there with any hose clamps, so just a breather hose, but there you go. You can take this right off, and now you can see that you have access to the carburetors a little bit better. Carburetors or carburetor, this is how green I am to doing this kind of work. I don't even know if I have one or two carburetors, so I'm kind of looking at it right now as it kind of looks like I have two. I'm going to go ahead and say I have two, because there's a diaphragm up top right here on this one, and there's a diaphragm up top on this one over here. So it looks like I got two, and I'm going with that. So anyway, it exposes them. Now the next step is start removing some hoses. I would definitely recommend taking some pictures along the way. In this case, with the video that I'm working on, I'll be able to refer back to myself essentially, so I can put it back together in the correct order. All right, on the opposite side of the bike, where the air filter is, there's this little cover I'm going to remove. This is going to expose where the throttle cable comes in, that comes down from your handlebars, and it also has the throttle idle adjustment. So there's actually a little screw right here that you can adjust, and that would be your idle adjustment. So if you're looking for that, that's where it is. But I want to be able to remove these cables, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And the best way that I have found to remove the cables is take your 10 millimeter wrench, just a regular old wrench, and loosen up the nuts on the throttle cables. And I'm going to take this bottom one out first. Comes out a little bit easier. Slide that out. Now that you slide that out, it gives you a ton of slack, so you can pull your cable down and slide the little nub out of the holder here at the end of the cable. And now you need to get the same slack up top here. So what you can do is you can twist the throttle, all right, hold on to the cable right here, bring it back. You're going to see all that slack that forms, and then you use that slack to do the same thing and pull the end of the cable out, just like that. So now both of them are released, and we can move on to the next step. Okay, so basically the next steps are just start disconnecting all the hoses. Like I said, definitely keep track of what you're disconnecting, take videos, take pictures, whatever. But so right off the bat, you got the two big hoses, one right up on top here on the left side, one right here on the middle on the top, and that's going to be connecting to your air cleaner. So they just have hose clamps with Phillips head screwdriver screws, so you can loosen and take those off. You'll have your fuel lines and other, breather hoses and that kind of stuff. Just make sure again, just keep track of what you're taking off, where it goes. This cable right here is actually part of your choke, so that's actually going to be part of the carburetor assembly from what I can see. So I'm not going to actually mess with this or the choke until I can get it off with the whole carburetor outside of the bike, and we'll go from there. So yeah, I'm going to start taking all these hoses off, and we'll see what it looks like when everything's nice and loose. All right, helpful tip, maybe one of the first things you want to remove. I've started kind of disconnecting hoses. You can see I got one disconnected right here. I disconnected one of the, looks like the fuel line right down here. But this intake hose, which mounts right inside here, if you take that out, that really kind of opens things up and you can really see what's going on. I couldn't really see what this was connected to as well. So I would definitely suggest maybe taking this off first, and it just gives you more room, especially when you start to pull this out. You now have more room to pull the carburetors up into the frame, releasing them from the cylinder heads. It basically has the same setup on the bottom of the carburetor, as you can see right down inside here. It's kind of hard to see, but you need space to be able to lift them up and off. So, little tip, take that guy off, gives you more room. All right, once you get everything loosened up, you're now ready to take the carbs out. And what I mean by loosened up is, again, make sure you have all the hoses off. The hose clamps on these short black pipes, there's one on this side, there's one on the other side. You want to make sure those are loose. Now, I just struggled for probably like a half hour. Maybe not, it seems like a half hour, but basically, once all the hoses are disconnected and your hose clamps are loose, you just need to take your carburetor, grab it from both sides, and basically pull it up, and it'll disconnect from your cylinder head, and then you can go ahead and take it out. I've been struggling with that, trying to get this carburetor to come up, and I'm trying to get it to break free from the cylinder head for that pipe right there, and this pipe right here. And I found out that although it was flexing, here is the other, I told you to take that top intake pipe off. Well, here is the other intake pipe. It goes down inside here, and it connects to the top of the carburetor right here. Well, I had it off and I had it loose, and it was just kind of like, hanging out, moving with the carburetor. So I figured, well, this is loose and moving, so this won't actually stop anything. Well, it was basically getting jammed up inside the frame. Once I took the left side intake hose off, I was now able to lift up on the carburetor, and you can see right here, I'll push it back in. All right, it's in and it's now out. So I literally just broke that free. So now that I've broken this free, I should be able to break the other side free. So I'm gonna turn the camera off and give it a shot and see what happens. Okay, so I just popped the other one free. Might be hard to see, but right there you can tell it's now popped up and out of this bottom pipe here. And so yeah, definitely helpful hint, take off your air intake hoses because they just get in the way of everything. Once I took those off, I was now able to break those free. And it looks like this is a radiator hose coming in. It looks like that's going to be in the way. So I should be able to now pull this out from the left side of the bike. So I'm going to give that a shot. All right, one last tip on taking the carbs out. So I got both the boots off, and it's very, very, very loose, but it still was not coming out. So if you can see inside here, we got this hose right here coming down, and it's hitting the boot. All right, that little black pipe. And I couldn't get the carburetor to go any further this way in order to get that little tube to pass over the top. So there was one more breather hose right here. It stuffs in even further. It's connected on the opposite side of the bike. And basically the carburetor was hitting that. So I took that breather hose off, and now I'm able to push the carburetors up far enough. I might not be able to do it with one hand here. Anyway, I just had it out and I put it back in for this video, but you should, with both hands, you should be able to push the carburetor up far enough now, and it's going to come right out on the left side of the bike. So now that I have my handy-dandy tripod so I can get both my hands in there, I can now get some pressure up and guide it, hopefully, right out. And there you go. There is your dual carburetors. Definitely, probably, definitely I would say the first time these have ever been out on a 93. So I'm really hoping it makes a big difference when I clean this with the hesitation that I got going on. So, all right. Now that I have these out, I'm going to do one more, talk about one more thing really quick before I cut this video. And that is what's basically is going to give you the most problem on getting these out are these little boots that I was just talking about. And again, being the first time that I'm assuming the first time that these carbs have been off the bike since 1993, these boots are supposed to be a lot more flexible than they are. And check it out, they're not really that flexible at all. So they're pretty hard as a rock. That's what happens to old rubber. They get pretty hard. So if you're going to go through all the trouble to take the carburetor out and clean it, I'm definitely going to replace those boots. And there's two reasons why. One, obviously, it's a pain in the neck to get your carburetors in and out if they're not going to flex. But two, if they're not flexing that well, then how are they supposed to seal that well if they're pretty hard? So, and if you get air seeping in, and that's where the gas is going in, or the correct mixture of air and gas is going into your cylinders, and if it's leaking, then no matter what tuning you do and what cleaning you do in the carburetor, it's never going to work right if you have a leak. So definitely get in there, clean it all off and get some new boots. So that's what I'm going to have to do. So basically, that's it for this video. I'm going to make another video strictly just on cleaning the carburetor, so I don't have this massively long video. So hopefully that helps.